We purchased the Volaris Annual Pass, and in today's video, we're going to tell you what it is, share our thoughts on whether or not we think it's worth it, and tell you about the crazy story about the drama that ensued on the first time we tried to use it.
And stick to the end because we're going to share some tips for you to get the most out of it in case you plan to buy it or already have it.
We want to make something very clear. This is not a sponsored video. Volaris is not paying us to talk about them, and what we're about to say here is influenced only by our own experience. We're making this video as a resource for fellow travelers, especially if you're someone who travels often between the US and Mexico and throughout Mexico. So what is the Volaris Annual Pass? Well, what is it not? First, it is not the V-Pass. Don't confuse it with the V-Pass, which includes one free flight per month with that membership. This is an annual pass where you pay an annual membership up front and then you get to fly as much as you want to wherever Volaris flies to, but here are the catches. Number one, you still have to pay the airport fees, which are taxes, IVA, and TUA, which are the Mexican airport fees, or any of the US airport fees. They're gonna be different based on the airport, and you'll be able to see that when you're booking the flight. Number two, your flights do not include carry-on baggage, and you know that these budget airlines charge an arm and a leg for carry-on and check-in bags, so just keep that in mind. Number three, you're only able to book one-way direct flights without connection. Number four and number five, I think, are the biggest catches here. When you're booking a domestic flight, you can only book up to 24 hours prior to departure. And if you want an international flight, you can only book up to 72 hours prior to departure. By the way, we're filming on the rooftop of our apartment building and it started raining. So we're gonna move inside so you can hear us better. Welcome to our kitchen. Okay, where were we? Right, how much did we pay for this?
Oh, we paid $350, but we got it through an early bird promotion. If we were to get it now though, it's $500 per person. And the reason we got this is to, have that flexibility to travel throughout Mexico so we can continue making content for Eat Baila Travel. We also thought, well, going to Chicago would be a little bit easier, more accessible, or going to see our friends in Colombia. Mm-hmm. So it was a good deal. It is a good deal. Or is it a good deal?
Well, theoretically speaking, I think it's a good deal because you're paying a one-time lump sum fee, and it depends on how often you're gonna be flying. When talking about whether or not it's worth it, it's more about who is this for.
Right.
So this is for somebody who is planning last minute or doesn't need to plan their flights way in advance. This is for someone who's a flexible traveler, more so for people who work remotely or at least in a hybrid sense where you're at least sometimes remote and can travel from one day to the next. Because think about how limited these booking options are. You can only book within the 24 or the 72 hours. So that means it is highly subject to whether or not there are seats even available. So it almost feels a lot like you're flying on standby, but you're not on standby because once you do book a seat, that seat is yours. Or at least it's supposed to be. So here's where we're gonna tell you our Volaris horror story, what we learned.
And this is the first time that we use it, so we're excited, it's a new annual pass, and then bang, bang.
It all looks great on paper. We thought we're the flexible travelers. This is gonna be a good deal for us. When it's all said and done, when you actually go to use the thing, that's where it gets complicated. So here's what happened. We purchased flights from Mexico City to Cancun the night before departure. On any domestic flight, check-in is already available within 24 hours of departure. We tried to check in, we couldn't. Okay, so their website was down. You could also download the app. App was also down in terms of check-in. So we figured we'll check in when we arrive to the airport. We arrived to the airport. This is gonna be the counter. I'm gonna do a dramatic reenactment. Kevin's gonna be the bad guy. It's gonna be great. We arrived to the airport an hour and 45 minutes before our flight leaves, which is plenty of time for a domestic flight when you only have a backpack. We weren't checking any bags. We literally just needed to get in line because we couldn't check in, but we didn't expect that there were going to be dozens and dozens of other people there with the exact same problem. We arrive and there are several long lines at the Volaris desks. The first annoyance is that they say everyone going to Cancun get into the first line. So we get in the first line, we wait in this line 20 minutes, and then the person in front, the attendant in this line says, excuse me, this is not a line, you gotta move over here. I had been standing here for 20 minutes, like 6 of us. So we all move and get back in line over here. We wait in line another 30 minutes until they announce flight to Cancun is officially closed, and we hadn't even been able to check in yet. So that was the first sign that we had missed our flight. which was really unfair because we had gotten there an hour prior, not expecting that every person they were going to be attending was going to take 20 minutes to assist. A bit unusual, but not for Volaris, because they do these things all the time where their apps and websites for checking in are down all the time. So while we're in line, we start asking people around us, and they all happen to have the exact same problem. They couldn't check in prior to arriving to the airport. And everybody, or most people, were going on the same flight that we were, including others. Some people were going to Cancun, some people were going to Tijuana, some people were going to LA. Nobody was able to check in their flight. So here's what happened when we finally reached the front of the line and spoke to the first attendant, first of many. Hi, so we arrived an hour ago. We've been waiting in line. I understand our flight has closed. What are our options?
So it looks like your flight is closed. So you missed your flight. So you're gonna have to pay $100 per person rebooking fee. We take Visa and MasterCard.
The first guy we talked to is the attendant that doesn't get paid enough for this, so he quickly passed us off to another one. So we knew that was coming because everyone in front of us was being told the same thing, and they were walking away really disappointed and upset that they missed their flight because they weren't able to check in because their website was down. Anyway, so I was ready to respond. I knew what I was going to say, and I brought out, I was gonna say my best version of American Karen, but really what I brought was Jenny from the block. They do not want to mess with Jenny from the block. So I went there. I wasn't wearing the hoops that day, but I wish I was. I went there and I was like, let me speak to your supervisor. Quickly brings over the supervisor. He had the smuggest face I've ever seen on an airline attendant. And they can be pretty smug sometimes, especially in Volaris and Viva Aerobus.
So it looks like you missed your flight, and you're gonna have to pay the rebooking fee because you were late to your flight. Oh, you were here an hour and 45. Well, you should have got here sooner. Way before. Yeah, I don't know what the situation is, but that's just policies of Volaris. So make sure that you pay your flight. Otherwise, we can't do anything for you.
Y'all, I was livid. I was beyond angry that they were trying to make it our fault for missing our flight when their website should have been operating properly. Their app should have been operating properly. You tell me, comment down below. Tell me what you would have done. Would you have paid? How convenient is it that their check-in on the app and the web page is suddenly down for multiple flights at the same day? And this is not the first time that happens. And now all these people are missing their flights, and they're trying to charge all these people $100 rebooking fee. That's a nice quick buck they're making right there.
Well, in case you didn't know, the government allows us to resell flights. And actually this flight wasn't completely sold out. There was actually 3 seats left. And it looks like there's 2 of you. So yeah, you definitely have to pay for your flights.
Actually, no, it was not just the 2 of us. There were 8 other people trying to get on the very same flight we were to Cancun. So how is it that there were 3 or 4 seats left while there were 8 of us that are trying to get on? They purposely oversold the flight, which I know is legal and common for airlines to do, but I feel like that serves as a possible motive or incentive for them to take down, or suddenly their webpage not working for check-in. I don't know, it's just way too convenient for me, and I definitely felt like they were taking advantage of people who were desperate to get to their destination. So when he told me that there's nothing more he can do for me, I pulled the supervisor card again. Let me talk to your supervisor.
It's fine. I can go call my supervisor, but I'm just gonna let you know that we have cameras up there, and we can tell that you guys weren't here that early. So I'm gonna go make that call, and then I'll let you know what she says.
Oh, you're gonna call your supervisor? Okay, I want you to pass me the phone so I can speak to them.
Yeah, no, that's not necessary.
Yes, it is necessary, but if you're not gonna do it, at least bring me I want a recording of your conversation with your boss. I don't know if he was really gonna go call their supervisor on the phone or what the deal was, but I was pulling every card I could possibly think of. And he comes back with a physical person, not with a phone or anything. He comes back with his supposed supervisor, and they do this thing where they go, okay, tell me how I can help you. And they want you to tell you your story all over again. And I think they do that to tire you out, so keep that in mind. Don't get tired. Defend yourself. At this point, this is the 3rd attendant I'm talking to. Apparently the supervisor's supervisor. I tell her the exact same story, same situation, and she gives me the exact same response, that it's our responsibility, that we should have gotten there earlier. And this is when I'm like, no, your website should have been operating. Your check-in should have been operating. So we had our group of about 8 or so people who were all fighting the same thing. We were all advocating for our right to be rebooked a flight without a penalty, because this is exactly what they called it. They called it a penalty fee that we all were supposed to pay. there's no way that we are going to pay you penalty fees and you are going to rebook all of us without paying the penalty. At this point, they had tried to separate us because they tell us that our personal information is sensitive and each person has a unique case. Yes, I understand, but also by separating us, they were trying to divide us so that we're not advocating for each other. There was a specific woman who was crying with her debit card in hand, ready to pay the rebooking fee when they were already waiving it for us. So I stepped in and I told the attendant, "You're not going to charge her, are you? Because I know you're not charging me." And this poor woman was just about to pay. This woman traveled 4 hours on a bus, 4 hours from Puebla with her 14-year-old son, and was crying hysterically because she didn't know what she was going to do. She was getting rebooked for the next morning. There was no way she could travel back to Puebla and be back for the 7 a.m. flight. It's about 8 o'clock at night, by the way. So we're talking about 11, 12 hours until she gets on her flight. She was terrified of Mexico City. She's not from the city. She only understands that it's dangerous. She can't afford to pay the expensive hotels in the area. So she was just so worried about what she was gonna do. And she's like, "I guess I'm gonna sleep at the airport." And that smug airline attendant just says, "No, you can't do that because we close. The airport apparently closes and you can't actually spend the night at the airport." So she starts crying even more. And I'm like, these jerks don't care. They have no human sympathy. And they were about to charge her anyway. So if it wasn't for us getting all together, if it wasn't for us fighting this all together, they would have charged us. And there were many people who did pay, but they feel like we didn't, this woman didn't, and then a few others didn't.
So if you're thinking about getting the Volaris Annual Pass, there are two things to keep in mind. One thing that we noticed is that it's good to book flights at midnight. Also, the website seems to close down between 8 and 11 p.m. every night.
Technical issues with them seem to be very common. So when we're searching for flights on the Annual Pass engine, they don't always come up. It looks like there's nothing available, but there's a PDF file that gets generated showing you how many flights, let's say Mexico City to Cancun, there are 36 flights, but then you go to actually book the flight and then it comes up as no flights available. Usually around 11 p.m. we're looking, and then we just so happen to be trying on one night again after midnight, and then it seemed to have refreshed. So that's when we noticed that it seems to refresh or reboot itself sometime after midnight, and we noticed that's the best time to book your flights. Not convenient, but it's a hack, I guess.
Also, once you book your flight, they're gonna give you a code to check in. Make sure you check in right away. If you're not able to check in, then
This is where you gotta arrive 3 hours before your flight.
Whether if it's national,
even if it's a national or domestic flight, because even if you're not checking a bag. We arrived over an hour and a half early for a domestic flight when we were not checking any bags. All we had was a backpack, and that still somehow was not enough time according to the situation that we just told you about.
Well, the positive thing was that we ended up adopting this lady and her son. They came over and stayed with us.
The woman that was crying before from Puebla, like she was devastated. She was traveling to visit her sick mom in Cancun. She wasn't going on vacation. She was just so upset and felt so alone in the situation. And we just could not leave a mom and her son alone at the airport. And she was, it was a risk for her to trust us, because who are we? We're strangers. But she came home with us and we had a nice evening. We had a beer, we had tacos.
We gave her a nice tour of Coyoacán, and it was our first Baila travel tour.
Our official Baila travel tour. Well, thanks for watching this video. If you made it to the end, drop an airplane emoji and an X for Volaris. Just kidding. Thanks, guys. Se cuidan, se bañan. Nos vemos en la próxima. Chao.